Jewel, who will be telling us more about fixing a recreational fishing regulation that doesn't work. Take it away, Maran. A round of applause.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I'll try not to cut into people's lunch too much. Thank you to the organizers of this conference. It's been a wonderful time here in South Africa. I have a really funny tan on my face. We had a couple of days in Cape Town, but this is also kind of how I look during the field season as well. So I think this is a good segue into talking about mainly an issue pertaining to the current regulations there for black bass that don't really work, our black bass spawning sanctuaries that we want to put in. I'll be doing a little bit of a high level summary of some human dimensions work and some ecology. I encourage everyone to go to Dave Phillips' talk tomorrow. He'll give the punchline for this entire thing here. Awesome. I'll start by saying that black bass, largemouth, and smallmouth bass are some of the most popularly angled species, if not the most popularly angled species in the North American context. It's an extremely important fishery, a multi-billion-dollar industry. You can talk to any bass angler and they'll tell you how important it is. You know, tournaments, TV, the whole 9 yards. Extremely big socioeconomic value there. They're also the face of catch and release angling in North America. And for that to really succeed, the impact or the perceived impact of fish has to be pretty low, which we know from research that is not necessarily the case. We know that we're making impacts to individual fish and potentially populations as well. This is a pretty international contingent, so I'd like to say that these fisheries are so important that they've been developed in many countries outside of the United States and Canada. I say for better or for worse. They're also some of the most invasive fish, but I think that kind of points to how important these fisheries are and how much people like to catch them. Being that they're super popular, they're also highly managed. We talk about a lot how to regulate them, how to manage these fish, but it's really about managing the people. The fish don't really know that we're managing them at all, and it's really the people who will make a regulation run or make it collapse. And this is, uh-oh. This has been recognized by a lot of key researchers. Human dimensions is extremely important, many of whom are here at this conference today. Black bass, largemouth and smallmouth, in the context of Ontario, when the water reaches about 14, 15 degrees Celsius, they'll move into the shallows to spawn. Females will then leave, and then the male will stay on the nest, guarding eggs and fry for anywhere up to 6 weeks, depending on the climate of that year. During this time, they're extremely vulnerable to angling. I can attest it doesn't take an expert angler to take these fish off of beds. They're pretty easy to spot these nests from boats or from shore. Myself, I would not say I'm the most avid angler in our group, but even I can go and take a bunch of them off nests. It's pretty easy. They're pretty aggressive during this time. The past kind of ethos of management was that catch and release, because it's a catch and release fishery, taking them off of beds doesn't really matter. And with compensation and so forth, bad year classes can be replaced with good year classes. But one of my mentors, Dave, he found that to be not true. So in fact, you can actually be causing some population level impacts by taking them off the nest. Basically, you take a fish off a nest, brood predators come, eat some of the brood. When you release the fish, then it has to make that choice whether or not it should stay. And if it abandons, its reproductive output is zero. We could link that to recruitment as well. Dave will go into more detail about this as well, but essentially years where there's low hook wounding and hook angling and low angling pressure, that's correlated with some of the best recruitment that we've seen. So we know that angling can impact recruitment. As well, behavior and fisheries-induced evolution, you can take aggressive bass off the nest and be left with a population of less aggressive males. So we can change things on a short time period as well. It's great that a lot of people here are talking about data poor fisheries, and it might surprise a lot of people to know that the bass fishery, we actually don't have a lot of good data either, despite them being highly managed. The current techniques, the broad scale monitoring program in Ontario, is really mainly for walleye, brook trout, or lake trout. So if your lake has one of these three species, then approximately every 5 years it'll be sampled. But if it doesn't have one of these three species, your lake has probably never been sampled in history. So we actually don't know a lot about these fisheries. Also, these gill nets that they place in the lakes for the monitoring are really bad at capturing bass, so it's very difficult to put this big gill net in shallow, weedy, stumpy areas. So a lot of reports, and these are all online as well, report very low numbers of catches for bass or no catches at all. So one of the things we wanted to do was use local ecological knowledge, some sort of alternative management strategy, to maybe get a picture on how the fishery is doing during our location of study. So here's what we found. We actually asked anglers to report their angling satisfaction for population numbers and sizes across several decades. These are individuals who had fished these lakes for a number of years. This is for largemouth bass here. You can see on the y-axis is the fishing score, 1 to 5, and you can see that their satisfaction with the numbers and sizes has gone down quite a bit in the last 50 years, especially the last 10, 20 years or so as well. Smallmouth bass, kind of the same deal, not as pronounced, but in the last 5, 10 years, that's what they're reporting, pretty substantial decreases, and this is across all of the lakes that we surveyed, regardless of angler type or if they use technology or not or tournaments. Generally, bass anglers in this region are reporting decreases. So that's setting up kind of the problem there. But in Ontario, we actually have regulations, open and closed water seasons, that are aiming to protect the black bass during the spawn. In our fisheries management zone, the opening day of the season is the third Saturday in June, which is supposed to help protect these fish during their reproductive period. But these regulations aren't quite working. Number one, we know catch and release events can have impacts on fitness. These regulations can be very difficult to enforce. Compliance on some water bodies are pretty low, and we can see people taking bass off of nests in or out of season. There's also overlaps with other open seasons, for example, northern pike, black crappie. So you can say you're fishing for those species and be inadvertently or advertently catching bass off of beds. There's also an issue with fundamental ecology, so the fish don't stop spawning on the third Saturday of June oftentimes. We snorkel these areas, and before opening season, you can go and snorkel this transect, and then after you can see 50%, 60% have abandoned. So we know that these people are going up and down the shoreline and catching them off of nests. Additionally, in the northern regions where we are, there's low rates of renesting. So if they abandon, they usually abandon. They don't come back unless it's some big environmental event that happens early on in the season. So it's because of these reasons that the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources is allowing our team to test out these black bass spawning sanctuaries. These are protected areas that's closed to all types of fishing, so you can't fish for anything during an extended reproductive period, aiming to protect these fish as well as recruitment. So we've been testing these out for the last couple years on 2 lakes. 2 different systems. One is Charleston Lake. It's a deeper cold water lake, rockier substrates, mostly smallmouth bass, and a Pinnakin Lake, which is shallower, weedier, more largemouth bass. These lakes are located about 3.5 hours east of Toronto, if anyone knows that, and about an hour and a half south of Ottawa, where we are situated. One thing we could do is some acoustic telemetry. So we have an array of 60 plus receivers out there to evaluate how they're using the space, if they're being protected. We tagged about 120 bass across these 2 lakes. Pretty easy tagging process, pretty funny having Steve in the water defending the nest from brood predators while we do the surgery. That's him right there on the top. We have some preliminary data that suggests that they are being protected, green dots being that they spent most of their time in a sanctuary for that period of time, their reproductive period. We've also been doing some live tracking, and we know there's at least some level of site fidelity for some of these fish, especially if they've been successful nesters in a region before. From the human dimension side of things, we also want to better understand if people want to follow these new regulations or not, and why they do or do not. This is the Environmental Registry of Ontario. For those that don't know, any changes to regulations and other environmental changes, they get put on this registry, and the public has an opportunity to comment on these changes, which may or may not affect the actual final decision. The ministry sent us the comments for these sanctuaries prior to them being put in place in 2023. We were able to do a little bit of qualitative work with them. We did find most people are supportive. 82% of individuals support these new sanctuary regulations, especially individuals who had seen things that we also had seen. For example, increased amount of people taking fish off nests illegally, increased amount of fishing pressure, or certain things like the bass fishing has gotten worse over time. Despite that, there are some people who are against this. A lot of these people, though, when we go and give talks, they actually better understand the science. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to do, is to change awareness and beliefs. In the context of this study even, we had commenters say that they didn't really want this regulation to be put in place until they attended a presentation by one of our team members, and that really helped change and align kind of what we were seeing out there. I also conclude, and I'm pretty happy to say, at this conference, there's a big bottom-up approach sort of theme, and we really are trying to do that. We were working pretty closely with a lot of the cottagers and the anglers on these lakes to help them better understand why we need to put in protections for these fish, as well as collecting some baseline data. And we worked on 16 or 17 lakes last summer, and this summer we'll continue to do so, and it's a fantastic and rewarding experience. I think I maybe went a little bit under time, so I think lunch is in order. But if anyone wants to shoot me a few questions, you can always contact me as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Actually, you are doing very good on time. So we have 3 minutes for questions, comments, or anything. Any questions? I know we are hungry, but come on, we're almost there.
Yeah, thanks. Very interesting. I missed that now in your talk somehow. Did these temporary closures actually help or not?
Yeah, so Dave's presentation will give the punchline for that. Preliminarily, yeah, we are definitely seeing better recruitment inside of the protected areas. I won't steal too much of Dave's thunder there.
I just wanted to know if maybe the restrictions of certain fishing gears may also help in, how do you say, getting the bass populations back up to past levels. So like, I know, I think in America they use quite a lot of live scope, and if that's, how do you say, targeting bass more, having more success, you know, more catch rates, high catch rates.
I'm so sorry. I'm a little bit hard of hearing. I didn't really pick up a lot of that.
So I wanted to know if a restriction of gear or fishing gear would help help also with this project and keeping, like so, or restoring the levels, the bass population levels.
Yeah.
I know probably the bass fishermen use the live scope, and they'll probably increase the catch rates.
Yeah, we're at a pretty big intersection of using live soap to capture fish. I would say generally, most of the people haven't adopted live scope yet. The anglers, a lot of them are maybe a little bit older and aren't in that space already. I can't really speak to exactly that topic, but I know there's been a lot of talks lately about if we should restrict the live scope, and maybe that'll help. But I think generally, probably having a more regional level sort of protection like a sanctuary would do more than just the restriction of technology.
Right, one last question.
Really nice talk, Joel. I'm sort of looking down the line. If these temporary closure areas result in increased recruitment, could you implement them in these lakes where you're having these issues that are multi-species fisheries? Do you think fisheries managers and anglers are going to go for that? Is that a consideration at this stage?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and we've been also trying to answer that question as well. I would say, at least from an enforcement perspective, the enforcers, the COs, they quite like a regulation like this because they can say, you know, if you're fishing in this area, you just need to get out. Managers, I think we're trying to get them also on our side with this. I would say anglers generally, if they understand that this is better for the fishery, I would say a majority are on board, and others, you know, they learn and then they come on board. There are also some that aren't on board, but are also actively kicking people out of the protected areas. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Joel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. All right. Bon appetit.